Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Melleny. If you'd like to get to know me a little bit better, all my social media links will be linked down below in the description box. Be sure to check that out if you're interested in any kind of way. Today, I'm just popping in to do a quick book haul. As you've probably seen a couple of times, I have a ton of books that I just never hauled across the last year or so, and there's about 60-70 books probably at this point, and I'm holding about 20 at a time just to get these things rolling. So this is the next 20. I'll put part 1 up in the info cards if you haven't seen that yet, and I will also link my TBR for the month if you're interested in seeing what I'm reading. It's none of these books, but in case you're interested in seeing how the reading is going, which we don't discuss that here. But anyways, I think let's jump into it so we can get through it and get discussing. So the first book I have here is The Unadoptables by Hannah Took. This book sounds amazing. I heard amazing things from Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, and it's just incredible. I do have a hardcover copy reserved at my bookstore, Bargain Books, and once I've read this, which I'm hoping to do in September, I am going to buy that if I really did enjoy it. I got this arc from a friend of mine. This came out in May 2020, so it's definitely out and about at the moment. It came out pretty much as everything was going into lockdown, but I remember hearing Gavin talk about it and rave, so I'm really excited for this one. The next one is a Afrikaans book that I got from Lapa Uitgewers, so a huge thank you to them, and that is Elixir by Frederick van Wyk, and this is, as I mentioned, is an Afrikaans book, and this book is absolutely gorgeous. But basically, this book was published after Lapa and Penguin joined forces, basically. And honestly, like, the production value of this book is so good, and I really cannot wait to jump into this because it looks incredible. So huge shout out to Lapa Uitgewers for sending me this. The next book that I have is Lightbringer by Claire Legrand. This is the third and final book in the Imperium trilogy. I do not have Furyborn or Kingsbane, but I do want them in this particular format because these are just so gosh darn floppy, but I've heard nothing but great things. So a huge thank you to Penguin Random House South Africa for sending me a copy of this. I'm definitely dying to jump into the series as soon as possible. It sounds like a fantastic fantasy series. I think it's YA, but it might also be borderline NA, so just double check that before you go in terms of the content, because I myself am not entirely sure. I then also received Mad Honey by S.J. Nodia. This is also a book that was sent to me by Penguin Random House South Africa, so huge shout out to them for sending this to me. This is a South African author, I believe, and it's from South Africa to Iceland, rural Belgium, and the Alps. The stories in Mad Honey radiate out to encompass the globe. So it just sounded like really good, and it's just a whole bunch of short stories that I figured I might read a couple at a time. Actually, it just looks like one whole, oh geez, okay, there's no chapter breaks. Okay, there are chapter breaks, but they look to be in parts, and these parts are long. But this book is not long at all. It's just under 250 pages, so I'm hoping to dive in and maybe read a part in one go. And that's the plan. So thank you so much to Penguin Random House South Africa for sending me a copy of this one. The next book I got is The Soul Hunters by Chris Bradford. I'm not entirely sure. I think I requested this one, to be honest with you, but I think I felt like really young middle grade action books just to kind of get through my reading slump at the time that I requested this. So once again, a big thank you to Penguin Random House South Africa for sending this to me. It's definitely one that's going to be on my list pretty soon because I'm always looking for action-packed stories and some middle grade books, honestly. So this one looks interesting, and I feel it gives me, what is that story called? Like Alex something? I'm not entirely sure, I'm gonna be honest with you. But it sounds a lot like that kind of thing, like a young spy, a teen spy kind of book. So I'm down. Penguin Random House South Africa also sent me The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor. This author is probably one of the most popular thriller writers out there. He wrote The Chalk Man, The Talking of Annie Thorne, and The Other People. I didn't really hear too much about The Other People, but The Chalk Man has been on my list for thrillers for years. So I'm really excited to read this one. I'm hoping to read this for Thrilltober, which I'm definitely trying to get to for this year. So that's the plan. He's probably one of my most anticipated authors that I have yet to read from. So it's definitely on the list, and I'm definitely 100% excited to get to it. Random House South Africa also sent me A Wedding in the Country, Will She Ever Find Her Happily Ever After by Katie Ford. Katie Ford, per my knowledge, is probably one of the most prominent romance authors out there, or like chick lit authors out there, and honestly I'm interested. It is quite a hefty book, but the writing is also humongous, so I'm not bothered by the length of it as much as I probably should be. But I really do want to get into more adult romances, not necessarily like smart romances, but you know, chick lit, because I love watching those kinds of movies, so I figured if I love watching them, I should love reading them too. That is my thought process when I'm pretty sure I requested this. And I also like requesting things that my mom might like to read because I'm trying to get her to read more every time, even though I'm not currently reading it's a process. The next book that Penguin Random House sent me is Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. This is the sequel to Ready Player 1. I have not read it, but I have watched the movie, which I know is not the same thing. I'll read Ready Player 1, I promise. It's one of those classics that's on the list. I'm really sorry if you can hear cats running. They've got the zoomies. But I am really interested in this because it's a classic, not this one particularly, but Ready Player 1. I then received All This Time by Mickey Daughtry and Rachel Levincott. They are the authors of 5 Feet Apart, and obviously there's a movie of 5 Feet Apart. This was sent to me by Jonathan Ball Publishers. So a huge thank you to them for sending this my way. I'm excited to get into this. This is obviously a YA romance, and I've been wanting to read 5 Feet Apart and obviously watch the movie as well. Haven't gotten into it. As I'm sure you can imagine, I haven't gotten into a lot of things, but I'm definitely interested in this. I feel like they write really emotion-filled stories that just have you on the brink of tears, so I'm excited to read it, as weird as it sounds. Jonathan Ball Publishers also kindly sent me The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. I believe Evan Winter wrote The Rage of Dragons, which was literally all anyone could talk about last year on BookTube. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot what it was. On BookTube, and this is the sequel of that, so I definitely need to get my hands on The Rage of Dragons as soon as possible because I've heard incredible things about this fantasy series and I need to get to it because I believe The Rage of Dragons was his debut and the debut was incredible. Getting back to Penguin Random House South Africa, they also sent me Breathless by Jennifer Niven. Jennifer Niven is like one of those classic YA contemporary authors that everyone knows about or has at least read one of her books. I have not, but obviously her most popular one is All the Bright Places, and the second one is Holding Up the Universe, which I think is set in the same universe, contemporary universe, as All the Bright Places. I've not read All the Bright Places. It didn't seem like my kind of book, but I am trying to watch the movie. But I definitely felt like this book was for me. I don't know, I just really am in that YA contemporary mood. Fantasy just isn't in at the moment. I know fantasy is basically my brand, but it's just been really difficult recently to get into those fantasy books based on work and stuff. And then also have a couple of other books from Penguin Random House, the first one being The Haunting of Aveline Jones by Phil Hicks. This is an Usborne book, and there is another book with this, and that is The Bewitching of Aveline Jones. So I guess obviously it's a story that follows. Oh my goodness. So one you should read in order probably. This is a middle grade, and I'm really excited because I love books with illustrations. It might seem very childish, but these are the books that I'm really into at the moment just because they do fly a lot quicker than what YA and non-illustrated books do. So I'm just trying to get back into the reading pace, which is definitely taking more of a second than I thought it would. I was also sent The Castle of Tangled Magic by Sophie Anderson. Sophie Anderson is a prominent middle grade fantasy author. She takes Russian folklore, spins a tale, and is just amazing. Obviously, she's written The House with the Chicken Eggs and The Girl Who Speaks Bear, and this is the other one, and I'm definitely down to read it. This is obviously all in that series. She's written a couple of other books, if I'm not mistaken. She's so popular in the middle grade world, and I'm dying to read one of her books to see whether I like them or not. I feel like once I found myself a middle grade author that I like, I tend to stick with their books as much as possible, so I'm hoping that she is an author that I absolutely love. Thank you so much to Penguin Random House for sending this to me. I'm dying to get into it. Once again, I have that thing in my head and I think I need to take a couple days off from work, like completely off, not sick, not anything, to just sit and read for a while, take like a long weekend maybe and just spend that weekend by myself reading, catching up with life, and just enjoying myself. Penguin Random House South Africa also sent me Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is a sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I absolutely love. I'll leave my review linked down below for you if you're interested in checking that out. But I'm obviously excited for this one. The third one has just recently come out and I'm dying to get my hands on it, but first I want to read this, review it, and get my thoughts and processes going. I love the first one. I felt like you kind of thought you knew the kill, but then you didn't, but then you thought you did, but then you didn't, and then you constantly have this like suspicion, but you don't know who to pick and choose. And I really love that about Holly Jackson, and her writing is just so easy to get into, and if you need to like put it down for a little bit, it's also easy to get out of, which I highly appreciate. And I highly recommend Holly Jackson. She's a skillful writer, 100%. I would then also send The Shining Girls by Lauren Bukes from Penguin Random House South Africa. This is probably one of the most famous South African writers out there. This is currently being turned into a TV series, and I do want to read this. It is a thriller, and I'm thinking for Thrilltober to do some South African thriller books and do like a comparison between ours, like South African thrillers versus you know, international thrillers, popular thrillers like that. And I'm just down to read this. And at the end of the day, I've heard nothing but great things, especially from my book club, and just people in general have been loving this. So I'm excited to jump in. Penguin Random House also sent me, South Africa, also sent me The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot by Marianne Cronin. I have not read this. I've been wanting to read this for a while now. Once again, the writing isn't big. And again, with the whole chicklet thing, I do want to get into that. So hopefully I can read this by this year sometime, maybe. I then, for my English course last year, had to read Dune by Frank Herbert. So I got it, but I have not read it. I am, every single time I stop, I think I'm on page like 67 or something of Dune. It's just such a really clunky book in the sense like it's heavy to read and you really do need to get into it. So I'm trying my best. I probably have to restart it, although I probably won't at the same time because the beginning is just so slow and like the setup isn't too crazy in the sense of it's not easy to forget. So I don't know, we'll see how this goes. I am going to try and read it, maybe not this year, maybe next year when I'm a little bit more in the flow of things. Penguin Random House also kindly sent me If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. This is a book that I've been also trying to read for a minute now. It just sounded so incredible and like a book I definitely needed to read. I also saw it a lot on Bookstagram as it was coming out and things, so I do want to read it as soon as I possibly can. I'm not entirely sure, but I think Penguin Random House sent me Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz, but I could be wrong and it could be Jonathan Ball. I'm not too sure about that. But obviously Anthony Horowitz, I've read a book by him. It was like a fiction written from his perspective and it was just so good and it was just amazing. And obviously Anthony Horowitz is known for his Magpie Murders, which is on here. But this is a very long one, but he's also a very prominent thriller writer and crime fiction writer, so I'm interested in reading this. Thank you so very much for sticking with me throughout this entire video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, please let me know, and let me know which books you think I should get to sooner rather than later. I'm excited for all of them, pretty much. I can't say there's a single one where I'm like, maybe Dune. Dune is very intimidating, and I really do want to watch it before the movie comes out, but I'm not entirely sure if that's gonna happen. But do let me know, and thank you once again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.